Hello, everybody. Atul Tandon, and welcome from Opportunity to our, I think this is our third annual Act Finance webinar. The first one was in something we all probably like to forget, the pandemic and lockdowns. So welcome, everybody. I am not going to introduce our work in working with smallholder farmers, because I expect most of you know about it, except that to say it is now about 10 years in the making, and has focused very intentionally and deliberately on some of the poorest, endemically poor communities and people on the planet, the smallholder farmer. I'm going to start with a saying from a person you all probably know, and a countryman of mine, Mahatma Gandhi, who, by the way, was a great inspiration for Martin Luther King, but that's a story for another day. Here is what Gandhi had to say, and I quote, "To forget how to dig the earth and tend the soil is to forget ourselves." To forget how to dig the earth and tend the soil is to forget ourselves. So to me, the most celebratory thing about this, about Opportunity, working with smallholder farmers, is that for now 52 years, we have focused on the poorest and the most marginalized communities on the planet. We are focused on people. Focusing and working with smallholder farmers adds to the people, the soil, what we are all made of. So in that, in many ways, I believe God's work within us, amongst us, with us, through us, gets completed. A focus on people and a focus on creation. I must say, Gandhi went on, this was from an article that he wrote in 1915. This one is hard to speak, but sadly continues to be the lot of farmers today. Only a few, I quote, only a few know that agriculture in the small and irregular holdings of India is not a paying proposition. The villagers live a lifeless life. Their life is a process of slow starvation. They are burdened with debts. Their life is a process of slow starvation. They are burdened with debts. So without giving away the whole story, let me turn over this conversation about how and what you and Opportunity are doing together to restore life to people who Gandhi in 1915, and sadly today in 2023, still true, live a life that is largely lifeless. Live a life, if you will look at the numbers from the World Food Program, continues to be a life of starvation. What are we doing to restore fullness of life, livelihoods, crop yields, growing more and getting more? How are we doing that? To lead us in that conversation today is one of my colleagues, Deborah. Please pardon her accent. It is from the UK. I think you will pay more attention to her than you do to me because of that. So thank you, Deborah. She is an accomplished expert in both humanitarian development and microfinance, has been with Opportunity for a long number of years. And has served us well both in the UK, but especially in our work in Africa and Latin America. Speaks probably more languages than I do, and is really today in the current role that she has, leads our global affiliate network based out of London, executive director of Opportunity Inc. So leading you in this conversation is Deborah, and Deborah, let me hand over to you, and welcome from all of us from the Opportunity US.
Thank you, Atul. And it's a great pleasure to be here, and thank you all for joining us. As Atul was mentioning, for 52 years, Opportunity International has adapted and improved how we serve people living in extreme poverty. And I think we all know that when disaster strikes, people living in poverty are the hardest hit, and climate change is really no exception. So we've been working together to determine how we will collectively approach solutions to climate change across all of our work. And as it has always been, our approach is rooted in meeting people where they are and really listening to their needs. Today, we're going to be talking about what it means for farmers to build their resilience to increasingly severe weather events, and what it will take to equip them with the tools, with the ideas, and with the knowledge they need to really to withstand climate shocks. With that in mind, it's my real pleasure to introduce some of the people who are at the very core of this work. First, we'll be joined by Tim Strong, who is our head of agricultural finance, and I suspect that a lot of you already know him. Tim will give an overview of our climate strategy, and I think he will really try to bring to life the climate crisis from the perspective of smallholder farmers in Africa. We'll hear about, I think, some of the risks that they're facing and what type of support they need to be able to adapt to a changing climate. After Tim, we'll hear from Lefani KACHISUZI, who is one of our client services managers in Malawi. And Lefani will talk about some of the areas that we're already starting to have a positive impact on, as well as some of the challenges that we face and how we're adapting and innovating to provide solutions to those challenges. After Lefani, we'll hand the microphone over to Sandi Roberts. Sandi lives in Harare in Zimbabwe, and she has over 25 years experience working in the agricultural sector in sub-Saharan Africa. And Sandi will talk in a little bit more detail about some of the specific practices that we are incorporating to improve soil health. And she'll also highlight some exciting new work that we're delivering in Rwanda, thanks to your support. No doubt you'll have lots of great questions and comments. So please do pop your questions in the Q&A box at the bottom left-hand corner of your screen. And we will have time to come to those questions at the end. We'll have a short Q&A. And of course, if you have other comments, then do put them in the chat box. But without further ado, let's get started with Tim Strong. Tim, perhaps you could start, please, with sharing the effect that climate change is having on farmers and on rural clients.
Thanks, Deborah, and greetings to everyone. First, as a starting point, I think it's really important to talk about the clients that we serve first and foremost. So I'd actually like to introduce everyone here to one of our lead farmers, one of our farmer support agents, and she's also a client of our financial institution partner here in Malawi, Anna Chimalizeni. Anna is a successful soy and peanut farmer who's been working with Opportunity for several years. She's now at this point tripled her crop production, increased her income, and even had enough profits to purchase a motorbike to provide rides in her own community and further diversify her income. She's also a farmer support agent, which means that Opportunity arms her with training and curricula and tools so that she can take the best practice she's learning herself and use it to train the other 100 farmers in her own community. So I wanted to start by sharing Anna's story with you because I want you to see her face as we continue our discussion. Farmers exactly like Anna who are being set back by the effects of climate change, and it's farmers like Anna who will be critical in how we design and promote the solutions that will help people become more resilient to these changes. As we know, investing in agriculture is one of the most powerful actions that we can take for a more inclusive future. More opportunities in agriculture mean fewer people go hungry, fewer children miss school, and more rural families are able to build sustainable livelihoods, create job opportunities for others. This is literally the most powerful intervention to end poverty. Most smallholder farmers in Africa, like Anna's, they live near or in extreme poverty, so less than $1.90 per day. According to the World Bank, the single best intervention to end poverty is to focus resources on the agricultural sector, which will return, on average, 2 to 4 times greater impact than traditional poverty alleviation efforts. So for us, our driving vision as a program is really one of rural prosperity, where farmers increase production, income, and employment. As Atul said, really where farmers are yielding more, growing more, and earning more and getting more at the end of the day. So as we work through that, really seeing the increase of capital into agriculture through our targeted interventions and supporting local financial institutions and lending to farmers, Again, always noting that currently there's still a $26 billion annual gap in farmer financing in sub-Saharan Africa alone. And then really the second part of our work, which is really supporting quality farming through digital training, market linkages, and wraparound services. In short, again, helping and supporting and working with farmers to grow more and to earn more. And what has this all meant in the lives of farmers like Anna? Really our outputs of the program, our impact is showing that farmers, and Anna herself included, they can increase their harvest yield by 57% and their income by 67%. And that's great news, right? It's great news. It's abundantly clear that all of the advances really through regular programming and increase in income and increase in yield and rural job creation are unfortunately, however, constantly at the brink of collapse as really climate crises race the progress within a single weekend. I think many of you that have heard me speak on this topic before and heard me last year present an update on Cyclone Anna, which as of 2022 was the most severe cyclone ever recorded in the Southern Hemisphere. Heartbreakingly, on March 12th of this year, Cyclone Freddie, now the strongest and longest lasting tropical storm, we made landfall twice, where mudslides collapsed whole mountain faces, resulting in 326 deaths, 83,000 people displaced, and 57 camps really been set up to support the affected households. Within our ag finance program alone, over 1,000 clients and staff lost houses, farms, and livestock. So for us, as we look at ever-increasing severity in storms, we see that the farmers we serve are at the forefront of a battle where climate crises, extreme weather events, droughts, floods, and cyclones are destroying crops and homes. Local economies are destabilizing, heightening risks for farmers and the entire agricultural market. But most importantly, what we do know is that this is disproportionately affecting the poor. In 2018 alone, climate disasters nearly directly affected 30 million people. Current estimates indicate that by 2050, 200 million people will be likely displaced by adverse climate events. Climate factors explain up to 50% of poor yield and anomalies on farms. But what can we do about this? Not Opportunity International's role to stop storms, to sequester carbon, affect global climate change. But what we can do, and I would say what we must do, together with our partnerships and our friends that are joining us on this webinar as well, is to really work with the farmers that we serve to increase their ability to adapt to an ever increasingly changing landscape. Climate scientists make this as an important distinction: adaptation versus mitigation. For us, ensure that we're not attempting to boil the ocean with too many interventions that are out of our reach, and to really make sure that we have the most impact with the resources that are entrusted to us. Our focus is on making sure that farmers like Anna are able to adapt. Our challenge is to make sure that Anna is as equipped as possible with training, support, and financial services, with really durable solutions to ensure her work is secure, to ensure that her family continues to prosper despite what the world is continuing to throw at her, to ensure that Anna, her children, and her grandchildren still have a farm to inherit at the end of the day. So really, in short, on my side, one of the key solutions to adaptation that you'll be hearing more about from Lefani and Sandi relates to what we call regenerative agriculture, which is agricultural strategies that really help farmers to improve the health of their soil and their resilience to climate change. These practices are critical for improving crop production, making livestock healthier, diversifying incomes, and ultimately making farms more profitable. And when our farmers have higher incomes, the entire household is more resilient when faced with the effects of climate change. And really here we can see really the key components of what we are proposing and what we are working with farmers in terms of adaptation to climate change, really looking at minimizing soil disturbance, maximizing crop diversity, keeping the soil covered, so really mulching and ongoing cover crop, maintaining living roots year-round, and integrating livestock. So with that, I think, Deborah, I'm passing back to you in terms of the next section for our webinar.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Tim. And that really sets the stage for just why this work is so important. And with that, I think I'd love to turn it over to you, Lefani. Lefani KACHISUZI, you work so closely with our farmers in Malawi. Can you tell us more about the challenges that they're facing right now and what you're doing to help meet those challenges? Thanks, Lefani.
Thank you. I'll start with what's working. As Tim mentioned, rural households are feeling the impact of increasing weather variability and severity driven by climate change. This is especially true for smallholder farmers that rely on rain-fed agriculture and are farming on degraded soils. Farmers are farming their land more intensively and yet are not able to incorporate a restorative period in their cropping cycles to allow for soil to be ready for the next season. So regenerative agriculture practices allow for soil fertility restoration to occur during and indeed between cropping cycles. So what's working well is that we firstly have to listen and understand the challenges being faced by our clients to find out what is already being done, what is working well, and what's not. Then together we could develop the practices that are most relevant to their context and interest, not the one-size-fits-all approach, so that farmers are more likely to adopt the solutions, and then we can scale and sustain these efforts in the future. We have discovered that farmers are much more likely to adopt practices that are being tried and tested by a trusted community member. As it is said, that seeing is believing. So we are leveraging one of our best resources, who are our farmer support agents, like Anna, when Tim mentioned about her, who are passing on their training in the communities. We have created demonstration plots on land belonging to our farmer support agents, where they can specifically focus on showcasing best practices in regenerative agriculture. We have seen good results, of course, from farmers like Anna, who are practicing regenerative agriculture principles, and they have become great evangelists of these practices. Another thing we've noted on what's working is that communities that have started implementing adaptation strategies have gone so far as to establish community bylaws or guidelines for livestock management, which helps to raise awareness and supports farmers to adopt regenerative agriculture practices. We continue to share the value of these practices with our farmers. There are a few challenges we are focusing on overcoming. Number one is the duration and intensity. Take note that it can take between 2 and 5 years for farmers to fully implement regenerative agriculture principles. The transition period can require learning new agricultural practices, employing more labor, navigating new supply chains, and experiencing depressed yields in the short term. Farmers may not have enough patience, of course, or enough support nor capital in the early adoption phase to surmount these challenges. Therefore, this calls for all stakeholders to consider increasing access to finance by our smallholder farmers through tailor-made financial products to cushion this waiting period or the early challenges that are faced by smallholder farmers. The second challenge you are trying to sort is costs. Some practices, such as keeping the soil covered, making contour lines, digging water harvesting ditches across the slope of the farming land, and making compost, require additional labor as compared to current cropping practices. This increases the cost of production. If farmers are unable to meet these additional costs, they often revert to traditional cultivation practices. Of course, increased demand for labor creates an opportunity for increasing employment in the agriculture sector. However, this will only happen if smallholder farmers are improving the profitability of their fields and have access to financing to address early capital deficits. I'll conclude by sharing with you a challenge on materials that we're trying to address. There are also competing needs for organic material on a farm. For example, maize stalks may be collected by rural households as cooking fuel, as we all understand about energy poverty. And then they leave little or none remaining to be used for mulching. In areas with little organic matter available, cover crops are likely to be a better fit for protecting the soil. However, these may be targeted by livestock during the lean months when there is not much natural vegetation around. In this scenario, a combination of growing additional animal fodder shrubs, planting cover crops, and introducing community livestock management bylaws would be an integrated solution that motivates farmers to incorporate some regenerative agricultural practices. Thank you very much, and over to you, Deborah.
Thank you, Lefani, for really sharing some important learnings that you're gaining from your farmers, where you're seeing successes, and as you just said, some of the outstanding challenges that you're facing as you support their needs. Just a quick reminder to our listeners at this point, if you do have questions, please do put them in the Q&A, and we'll come to those when we get to that live segment at the end of our session today. And now let's hear from you, Sandi Roberts. Please do share a bit more about some of the other pilots that are underway. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Deborah. And hi, everyone. And just to reiterate, as many of you already know, Opportunity has a rich history of building resilience in impoverished rural communities through the targeted finance-based solutions. And we've seen success in these initiatives, particularly in helping farmers recover from recent cyclones, where crops were completely washed away. But some of the farmers were still able to buy seed and start again as they had access to financial services and some savings set aside. As mentioned by Tim, we are also seeing a need amongst the communities as they struggle to adapt to the recurring weather events such as droughts or flash floods. And I'm not talking about cyclones per se, but it's those frequent heavy tropical storms that happen during the rainy season. As we were brainstorming around key focus areas under our climate strategy, it made a whole lot of sense to leverage the relationships and successes that we already had with our financial partners and the teams on the ground, the farmer support agents like Anna, in order to help incentivize behavior change with a key focus on farmer activities that would ultimately help them adapt to these changing conditions and strengthen their resilience so that they could recover much quicker. We looked at what this would take and found many proven concepts that were climate smart and had a strong focus on soil health, such as regenerative agriculture, as described by Tim earlier. Add to this as well the planting of trees, and it's a great recipe for success. In recent years, we've seen that farmer resilience is dependent on building soil health, and that soil health is directly linked to soil carbon in the form of organic matter. We're seeing that small increases in organic matter are increasing the amount of soil held by the amount of water held by the soil. This is due to better water infiltration, less runoff, less erosion, which of course helps the crops survive the seasonal droughts and the shorter rainy seasons when they occur. Higher organic matter also increases the soil's ability to hold essential plant nutrients, and this reduces the need for expensive off-farm fertilizers. Healthy plants have a better immune system, so experience less pests and diseases, all reducing the cost of the pesticides. So not only is it good for the farmer's profitability and overall resilience in the face of climate change, but storing more carbon in the soil is great for removing carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Opportunity's Ag team are working with a few pilots to support their financial partners in formulating specific climate-focused loans, as well as to gather lessons learned on how best to roll this out and scale it up. One example of this is a pilot in Rwanda. As you may or may not know, Rwanda has suffered 2 years of drought consecutively and is facing a food crisis. We're working in 2 districts within the country, and we're partnering with one of our local microfinance institutions. The incentive will be a cash collateral easement for those that agree to implement regenerative agriculture, climate smart activities. As mentioned before, these are simple, well-proven activities that will help farmers improve their soil health. Things like minimum tillage, mulching, increasing biodiversity, replanting of mixed cover crops or rotations. The inclusion of livestock. Manure is an extremely useful on-farm fertilizer, but it also helps improve the farmer's resilience through providing multiple streams of income. And of course, planting local fast-growing trees. So we've been targeting 300 climate-smart loans for farmers and establishing demo blocks to help with the training of these farmers and targeting over 1,000 farmers in the training. As Lefani said, seeing is believing. And the plan is from 2024 that we'll be upscaling this, the best practices, and expanding it to reach a further 24,000 smallholder farmers. This will be in the next 4 to 5 years. I think that's it from me, Deborah. Handing back to you.
Thank you so much, Sandi. It's really great to hear about some of the work that's been done around soil health, and amazing to hear how these changes can really arm small-scale farmers for the future. I think something that you alluded to, and Lefani and Tim also, is another complex piece of this puzzle, and that's around the financial component. So Tim, I wonder, could you just take a few minutes and share how you're addressing the financial challenges faced by farmers as they start to address and implement these practices and make these changes? Thank you, Tim.
Thanks, Deborah. So as you might be sensing, we covered a lot of ground in the last 25 minutes in terms of different pilots, different activities. We have a lot of work ahead of us, and you know, our pleasure is that much of this is anchored in partnerships, collaboration, and the development of the right solution for the right need. I think both Sandi and Lefani covered this quite well, and we've also noted that the returns can be quite material, but the challenges are as well, of course. So we'll be doing assessments on the investment costs that farmers like Anna will have to make for longer-term solutions to really secure their futures. In Ghana, for example, we did an evaluation. We found that cocoa farmers would have to wait 8 years to see the financial gain from investing in some of these same practices. We're now running production tests, again, high input single crop agriculture, monoculture against these same soil health pilots that Sandi covered, yet noting currently within the markets we're working in, we've seen nearly a tripling in the cost of fertilizer due to the pandemic and the war in Ukraine. So really, we're looking at a different set of economics that I think has not been seen since the end of World War I in terms of the production costs in agriculture. We're also extremely passionate about what's being made possible through the partnerships. Those that we already have and those that we're developing at this very moment. In the process of partnering with governments, investors, and financial institutions to really see what we can do best. So to support quality farming with a focus on soil health, paired together with increasing the flow of capital for climate adaptive agriculture. We're also partnering to ensure that financial incentives are delivered through financial institutions to support farmers and reward farmers as they labor to improve their soil. And blending different types of investment enables us to do this in a way that takes a market-based approach and offering a more accessible and affordable finance. And this will really require us to first scale capital. So financial partners are critical for us in building resilient farming practices. Really, they're the long-term presence on the ground in terms of the relationship with farmers at the end of the day. And it's really been remarkable in the last 3 years. We've seen the number of financial institution partners double within our network for agricultural finance. And really the value of financing for farmers triple as we closed last month with a cumulative $300 million of financing unlocked for small farmers. But we also need to scale our reach. Reaching farmers is another challenge. They are located in remote rural areas, and we found that the best way to reach farmers is with other farmers. So Lefani shared earlier, making sure that we have farmer support agents and staff like Lefani's team to really help support them as they're extending best agricultural practices. Really, that's for us really important, and really thanks to the Waymaker campaign and many that have contributed, really looking at how we can continue to double our number of farmer support agents every year and the number of farmers that they reach. As we move forward, really arming our farmers to become more resilient and durable to climate change. We've remained committed to serving the farmers with the most need and improving their production despite the great challenges we discussed today. Ultimately, we are helping rural communities redefine the meaning of rural prosperity to include building resilience against climate shock through targeted tailored training on soil health, crop diversification, innovative irrigation, and other regenerative agricultural practices. And I believe that we can do it. And hopefully my team is very much with me on that as well. Deborah, can I pass back to you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Tim. We've got about 10 minutes for Q&A. We've had some really great questions that have come in. So thank you all. Do keep them coming. I think the first one, Tim, just related to what you were mentioning there about financial products. A couple of questions related to the specifics. One is around products that can help farmers during that wait period when they're applying regenerative agriculture practices. Another around the availability of insurance products for farmers for crop rebuilding, for example, and for housing. We saw some of that devastation that you mentioned of Anna right at the beginning as a result of the cyclone. And then if you have time and you touch on perhaps the loan repayments, but yeah, so products that can help farmers in that wait period and then availability of insurance. Thank you.
Yeah, I think the earlier comment around partnerships is the critical piece there. I think we're all aware in terms of the rising macroeconomic issues happening worldwide, even in the US, in terms of the increase in interest rates for lending. That's a reality that I think all of us, as well as the farmers that we support, are facing. So really, as we're looking at what's happening with global agriculture, we've seen a lot of partners that are willing to come alongside and help bridge some of those short-term gaps. But really doing it in a way that's much more economically sustainable and looking at leverage factors in terms of development finance. And so we're really looking at how do we blend the commercial capital within local financial institutions together with more patient capital. I'm going to leave that one there because we're working on a very large initiative right now. And we're really hoping to be able to share more about shortly, but it's quite exciting for us. On the insurance product side, a lot of it depends on who you're targeting. So if you're a large farmer with 100 acres, you can easily get an insurance product that covers your needs. When we're talking about smallholder farmers that have an average of 5 acres for their family farm, being able to insure that is much more difficult. And I think that there's been a lot of challenges, a lot of experiments and attempts in terms of getting the actuarial work really fine-tuned to cover smallholder farmers. But I think the perfect solutions aren't there yet, but partnerships there become quite important as well. We're currently working together with Milliman as an actuarial company to look at what might be possible and also blending insurance products so that the premiums paid by farmers are somewhat supported by premiums being paid by financial institutions at the end of the day. Deborah, I'm really sorry, I forgot what the third question was.
No, Tim, that's been brilliant. Thank you. And you mentioned there about, I guess, the business model of providing insurance, particularly to small-scale farmers. Lefani, perhaps can I bring you in with your knowledge of farmers and maybe some of the attitudes and challenges that you see from their perspective? When I was in Malawi 15 years ago, I spoke to farmers and they didn't trust insurance. They didn't see the value of insurance. So maybe you could you comment a little bit on some of the attitudes that you confront when you deal with smallholder farmers, and maybe some of the ways that you can help support them to understand insurance a bit better.
Sure. If there is something big that a farmer expects when they have issued their crop, is that when the catastrophic event happens, they want their award 100%, no negotiations. And the challenge is that most insurance companies do not do that as reaching the expectation of a farmer. So what we're doing currently to still bring on board more farmers to register for insurance is that we've included a training topic in farming as a family business, which is insurance, using the very same farmer support agents to build farmers' capacity or understanding of insurance, that if something has not happened, which is bad, you won't be given back your money. If the catastrophic event happens, you'll be given the money. So far, that's what we are working on. However, it is worth mentioning that companies that are into insurance, they have a required number of participants to work with us. For example, one company demanded of around 10,000 clients for a start. So the same issue of access to finance, not all smallholder farmers are accessing this finance, and therefore they are lowering the number which insurance companies require for us to partner with. But we are trying our best to increase the other side of agricultural finance so that they can be registered on insurance and we can have more partners around insurance companies. Thank you.
Thank you, Lefani. That's really insightful.
Deborah, hop on just with an add-on on Lefani's points. I think that was brilliantly stated, and sorry for breaking the flow of some of the Q&A section, but I think it's really exciting in terms of what Lefani's farmer support agents can do, not just as local leaders, but also as fully digitized agents. So really by being part of a digital platform, they can help with resolution in terms of combining weather data for farmers to be able to see what's happening in terms of storms. They can also collect data on behalf of insurers as well as other partners in terms of specific resolution, GPS units, and really helping identify some of the causes at the farm level in terms of what's happening with climate crises, but also start to drive down some of the operational costs of partners like insurance firms, as we can really see a lot of that same level of effort being pushed into the farmer support agent side. And Lefani, I'm sorry for jumping in. I'm really excited about how the digital components really build into the work that's coming out.
Thank you, Tim. I think it's great to just emphasize again the huge and important role that the farmer support agents play. And we talk about access to finance, but the training and the support that you bring alongside that to your farmers through the farmer support agent model and network is really important, and building trust in the communities that you're serving. Tim, you just touched on their digital, and we do have one question that's really focused around integrating technology to address some of these challenges. Particularly around, you mentioned farmers getting timely updates about weather. Have you got any plans to introduce specific technologies to support these farmers, perhaps an app or something like that you could tell us about?
Yeah, an app is good, but an app is only as good as the people that are using it and what's happening on the back end. So for us, what's really exciting is support from one of our current U.S. board members, Greg Nelson, who's coming out of Microsoft, as well as Paul SNE, our new Senior Director of Digital Innovations, and our whole digital financial services team in terms of building out what does the app actually connect to at the end. So on the front end, it's connected to layers of trust. As Lefani mentioned, the farmer support agents who are trusted in their own communities. On the back end, the actual architecture and the scaffolding is really what I think is going to become the game changer at the end of the day. Not just an opportunity international solution, but a way of really delivering value for farmers and value chain actors in a way that I believe hasn't really been seen in the market yet. So I'm quite excited about what's being built. I know we had a very brief mention, but significant one within the Financial Times just a few weeks ago, and really excited to see the topic of how does artificial intelligence get integrated in, how does satellite information get integrated in, together with that last mile ground truthing, which Lefani as farmer support agents really deliver in an incredibly meaningful way. So,
thank you, Tim. And perhaps someone could pop that Financial Times article in the chat so that those on the call can look at that and see some of the exciting things going on. Thank you, Tim. And we've only got a few minutes left. There's a couple of questions I'd really like to ask you that have come in. One is around empowering women. And we know that women bear the brunt of extreme poverty, and they also bear the brunt of climate change. So is there anything that you're doing within your program that you could touch on, or perhaps Sandi or Lefani as well, around empowering women particularly? Maybe, looking at this issue that we hear is a bit technical about gender mainstreaming, but perhaps quickly touch on that would be great. Thank you.
So I can take the gender mainstreaming one. I mentioned about farming as a family business. This is a deliberate curriculum that Opportunity International has introduced in our curriculum. So we're using the very same farmer support agents to deliver that training. We are encouraging more. I can recall that there's a topic, we call it joint family planning, planning decision making, where we are encouraging a husband and a wife to sit together doing farm budgeting, and a business doing profit and loss calculations. That's one thing that we are doing to encourage women into agricultural farming. As you understand that most of the African countries, women are suppressed when it comes to agriculture. It's like it's work for men. So farming as a family business curriculum is meant to enlighten the communities around gender.
Brilliant. Thank you, Lefani. Well, I think we're very close to the end of our session, and perhaps I should hand back over to Atul. I think you'd like to close, Atul, and thank everyone for joining. So over to you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for joining. Thank you, Deborah, first of all, and thank you to our panel from different parts of the world who brought your insights, your knowledge, and your day-to-day work experience to bear. And I also want to especially thank our partners who joined from across Africa, from Cameroon, Nigeria, Uganda, Ghana. And these are the folks who are really working in the field with us. As you'll recall, opportunities model, both we directly work with farmers to help them to grow more and get more. We directly work with local financial services providers, banks and MFIs, to not encourage them, to equip them to develop products and solutions to lend to farmers. And not only lending, but all financial services. How do we do that? And using the smarts we have of many, many years of working with both owning and running banks, as well as working directly with farmers. So that multiple leverage model is what you see actually at play today, even on this webinar. From the donor's perspective, leverage of as high as from as low as 10 times the funds, your dollars that you give as philanthropic funds get out to the field in terms of loans and financial products, to as high as in some of things programs that multiplier could go up to 15 to 18 times. The other thing that does as I close is, and this is what, your question about technology. And in the last about 18 months, what we have tried to focus our minds on, and we are excited, and we'll talk more about it in the future, is the people who are joining us, Tim referred to some of them, to come together with some of the leading minds in the world of not only AI and machine learning, but building technology ecosystems to figure out how to set up a back-end technology infrastructure, especially in Africa, that enables us to drive the cost of delivering services down to smallholder farmers to as little as a penny a day. Now, when that happens, the kind of dramatic change that we are then able to see in the lives of these farmers, I believe is unbelievable. We will not be able to actually fathom the amount of change and the speed at which it happens. I don't think we're prepared for it. What we can do is to figure out how to get the most sophisticated products and services to these farmers at the least possible cost. And I do hope that, that day happens soon, because then I want to be able to turn around and turn Gandhi's quote around. These people are no longer living lifeless lives. They're living lives, their lives are full of life. These people are not living lives burdened by debt. They're living lives where they're actually generating positive contributions, not only for their families, but for their communities. And in that day, I do believe that of all people, God's the one who's going to be most pleased with what we do today, you do today. So thank you, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for joining hands with us. Thank you for joining your minds with us. Thank you for giving us your time, your talent, your treasures, your testimonies. In doing all this, I do have to remember the clients that we serve. And one of my most favorite clients, of course, Faustina, who I think I'm going to be meeting soon if Tim has my planning done right in Malawi in just about 10 days' time. A smallholder farmer, literally living on the edge of existence and the edge of life, to meet her and see what we can do to change her life. So I want to bring her story to you the next time we meet. Till then, au revoir and take good care. Have a good day and stay in touch. Bye for now.